the possible relationships between selenium deficiency and global warming, and some of the factors that people like you are studying in order to explain the demise of the sheep and the pikas?
Sure. The study's been going on since 1998, looking for causes for poor reproduction on the part of this mountain sheep herd, led to some extensive studies by biologists, wildlife biologists, and physiologists, combined with other disciplines, indicate that selenium deficiency in the forage here is getting greater and greater. In other words, the selenium levels in the plants are decreasing continuously since probably the last 30 years or so. Since we've expanded the studies into about 22 herds of bighorn sheep, we found that the ones growing on this kind of granitic soil, that is the sheep that live on granitic summer ranges like this one, are showing the most effects of what looks like selenium deficiency, otherwise known as nutritional muscular dystrophy, which is well documented in domestic sheep, but not really well documented in wild animals like wild sheep and wild goats. We found that the sheep living on granitic summer ranges were showing these symptoms, and the sheep living on sedimentary ranges, which have an alkaline pH and greater availability of selenium, don't show these same indications. They have good reproduction rates and not as subject to disease. It all started here when we had a die-off in 1991, and sheep did not recover after about 7 years. The lamb rate stayed low, and I was hired by the Game and Fish Department to investigate that low reproduction rate in 1998. What we found was selenium levels were extremely low, below the maintenance levels for other animals like domestic sheep. And these sheep were migrating to their mineral licks very often, but they didn't bring their lambs with them in 1998. And normally the lambs would always travel with the ewes. The fact that they didn't made them susceptible to predation by coyotes and mountain lions. And there was a survival rate of about 10 lambs per 100 ewes at that time. We started supplementing with selenium salt blocks on the summer range, and the survival rate went up to 35 lambs per 100 ewes, which is the normal long-term average on this range. So that was a pretty good indicator that selenium may be the key factor in decline of sheep from here in Wyoming all the way to California, where we've been able to document these same kinds of declines going on in sheep populations. We also find, interestingly, that pika populations are declining in these same mountain ranges with the same geology, as are pika populations. So marmot, pika, and bighorn sheep, the residents of the high country, are all declining at the same time, which sometimes is attributed to global warming. In the case of pika, we know they like cold climates. So global warming might be a reason, but recent evidence is turning away from the warming itself and focusing more on global drying, where you have less accumulation of snow, early melting of snow in the spring, which lowers the insulation factor for pikas who burrow under rocks, basically, to survive. And when the snow level is not as deep, they have less insulation and they're exposed to colder temperatures. So it actually may be that these pikas are freezing more instead of warming up too much. because of the depth of the snow that protects them from winter cold temperatures. Interesting turn of events there, but global warming could actually increase the fuel demands on pikas so that they don't have enough food to get through the winter, since pikas store their food under rocks and in caches. But anyway, getting back to selenium, we think that selenium, being a very essential nutrient for all mammals, particularly for the production of protein, that decreases in selenium that we've been able to document in mountain ranges like this actually set up these animals for infectious disease that they have no resistance to, because the immune system is primarily dependent on protein, and protein requires selenium as a cofactor for its production in all mammals. So we're looking at a pretty complex thing here. It has to do with pH, it has to do with geology, it has to do with rainfall, it has to do with pollutants in the rain, which may augment the decrease of selenium in the soil through change in microbial growth that allows selenium to be absorbed by plants. And then the microbial growth. So we have microbiologists working on this problem right now, who are isolating the bacteria that and fungi that convert selenium to forms that can be absorbed by grasses and forbs on these sheep ranges. We find that nitrates in particular, when they fall in rainfall, can alter the bacterial component in the soil, the microbial component in the soil, and actually lower the selenium levels significantly, because it's those microbes that convert selenium into a form that can be absorbed by the plants that sheep and pikas and marmots eat. So what we're finding is that nitrate levels are increasing. We think there are other chemicals in the air that are responsible for this phenomenon, but as nitrate levels increase, we're finding a tendency for organisms like actinomycetes to increase in the soil, and actinomycetes, especially one we've isolated in this winter range, selectively pull selenium out of the soil and convert it to an unavailable form, so that the plants can no longer absorb it. That means the animals that feed on these plants become deficient, and what you see is nutritional muscular dystrophy, which we actually did see beginning in 1998, where the lambs in severe conditions of selenium deficiency in this soil, in these plants, will actually suffer muscular dystrophy, where their hind quarter muscles no longer function. They can't stand up. They can't even get up on their front legs after a while, and that means they can't nurse, so they can't get milk, and they begin to become unthrifty, they lose weight, and they start to die. And the moment of death usually occurs when the mother leaves to go down to the mineral licks to replenish her selenium reserves. So the adult sheep sense the need for the trace minerals, and they leave. They'll go down to little glacial lacustrine flat areas down in old lakes from the old glaciers. They'll eat dirt for a day or 2 days, which is high in selenium, high in sodium, high in cobalt, high in many other trace minerals, and then come back to often a lamb that's been eaten by a mountain lion or a coyote. So that's briefly the scenario. We work with about 7 or 8 different kinds of scientists, glaciologists with the USGS, physiologists, veterinary, wildlife veterinarians, wildlife biologists, soil scientists, microbiologists, and weather people. We need all of those people to make predictions to see if this selenium deficiency is actually happening. And so far the indicators are that this is happening, not just here, but all through the western United States and probably in most other mountain areas of the world right now. We have a lot of dots to connect yet because it's a complex situation. It requires getting people from different disciplines to work together, which is very difficult. But at this stage, the indicators are that selenium deficiency and protein production above 11,000 feet in granitic mountain ranges is a serious concern worldwide.